The sweltering summer heat filled every corner of my home, and with the air conditioner broken, I couldn't take it anymore. Frustrated, I called the nearest repair service. When the doorbell rang, I opened it to find Noah, a tall, handsome, and charismatic young man. His warm smile and confident demeanor immediately caught my attention. As he introduced himself and got to work, I found myself distracted, unable to look away from him. The way his toned arms moved, the beads of sweat on his brow, it all drew me in. Though he seemed focused, I caught him glancing at me, his gaze lingering just long enough to spark a silent tension between us. While he climbed the ladder to inspect the unit, I pretended to stay busy, but my eyes kept drifting toward him. The air in the room felt heavy, and not just because of the heat. "Would you like some water?" I finally asked, my voice softer than I intended. He glanced down at me with a faint smile. "That would be great, thanks," he said, climbing down. When I handed him the glass, our fingers brushed briefly, sending an unexpected jolt through me. His eyes lingered on mine for a second too long, and I knew he felt it too. As we talked, I discovered Noah wasn't just good at his job. He was witty, easygoing, and surprisingly charming. His laughter was low and genuine, and his occasional lingering gaze made my pulse quicken. I wasn't imagining it. There was something between us. The silence in the room grew heavier as he turned back to the unit. I couldn't stop myself. I stood and took a step closer. "This heat must make your job unbearable," I said, just to fill the silence. He paused, glancing over his shoulder at me. "It's not so bad," he said softly, but his gaze didn't waver. The pull between us was impossible to ignore. I took another step closer, closing the distance between us. "Don't be so hard on yourself," I said lightly, my meaning clear. He hesitated for a moment, his brows furrowing slightly. Then, as if on instinct, his hands found my waist. "This isn't exactly professional," he murmured, a crooked smile tugging at his lips. "Sometimes professionalism is overrated," I replied, matching his grin. That was all it took. Slowly, he pulled me closer, and before I could second-guess myself, his lips met mine. The kiss started softly, but quickly deepened, all the tension that had built between us spilling over in a wave of heat and desire. The broken air conditioner and the outside world vanished, leaving only the two of us in that charged moment. When his lips parted from mine, his hands lingered on my waist, his touch warm. His eyes searched mine, a mix of surprise and longing. "I think things just got a little complicated," he said softly, a faint blush on his neck. His smile, however, betrayed his lack of regret. I let out a nervous laugh, my heart racing. "Sometimes complications are better than monotony," I whispered. Noah's smile widened, and after a moment, he turned back to finish the repairs. As he packed his tools, the air between us was still electric. At the door, he gave me one last lingering look. "Your AC is working perfectly now," he said lightly, but his tone carried more than professional courtesy. I smiled, my voice steady despite my racing heart. "Thanks, Noah," I replied. He nodded, his lips twitching into a final knowing smile before stepping out. As the door clicked shut, I leaned against it, the room finally cool, but my thoughts anything but. This wasn't just another repair call, it was a moment I wouldn't forget. As I stood there, leaning against the door, I couldn't help but replay the moments in my mind. My heart was still racing, my breath uneven, and my skin tingling from the lingering touch of his hands. I glanced at the now cool room and let out a soft laugh, realizing the irony. It wasn't the air conditioner that left me breathless, it was him. Noah had brought more than just relief from the heat. He'd awakened something I hadn't felt in years. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't thinking about responsibilities or routines. I was simply living in the moment, and for now, that was more than enough.